Welcome to discussion 19, where we'll be talking about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and applying the story to Campbell's hero's journey. For this discussion board, you're really going to want to have out the worksheet that goes along with the hero's journey, which you can get right below this video, and you'll also want to have out Campbell's hero's journey handout that I had you read for today. So hopefully this diagram looks really familiar to you. Of course, this is a diagram of the hero's journey that you read for today with Campbell. And it starts over here with the call to adventure. And this happens out in what we would call like the real world. And then once we get to this first helper, this is when our hero realizes that they have some special powers or some magical journey that they need to go on, basically a call to an adventure. And then we have this moment where we're in the real world, and then we cross over into this magical world where they've crossed the threshold of the adventure that they're supposed to go on to, and then we really get into the action of the story. Okay, and of course we've got tests and helpers along the way. Here are some other things that or aspects that might be in the story, and then over here we have the flight, where the character may be concerned that they are not able to accomplish this thing that they're doing, and then we have this moment where they finally are able to overcome whatever task it was, and then they return back into the real world. Okay, and then of course it could start off over again. We specifically see this in the Harry Potter series. While the entire series could be following Campbell's hero's journey, if we look at the specific stories within the series, those generally follow the hero's journey as well. This is the same with the Percy Jackson series as well. So if that's something that you're familiar with, you can see how those different books kind of follow this same journey, but also the entirety of the text also follow this hero's journey path as well. So the first part of the hero's journey that I want to talk about is really before that we cross into the threshold of the magical world. And so this is really the separation or departure from the real world. So at first we're in the ordinary world, where the Muggle world, where Harry is living with the Dursleys and he's not very happy. And then we have the call to adventure. So this kind of happens in two ways, where we have the very clear invitation to Hogwarts through the letters, but then also we have the specific moment where Hagrid finds Harry and the Dursleys and tells Harry that he in fact is a wizard. The next thing that we have is this refusal / acceptance of the call, and that's that moment where Harry is really grappling with the fact that he is a wizard, but then Harry of course accepts the call. The next part is the meeting the helper. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be one person. In fact, I would say that meeting Hagrid and Dumbledore is kind of are both helpers in this scenario of helping Harry learn how to become a wizard. And then we have a crossing of the threshold, and this is where we kind of switch into that magical world where the adventure is going to begin. So this is the moment where he literally crosses into platform 9 3/4 and gets on to the Hogwarts Express. So the next part of this is the initiation, and that you could see as being like the rising action if you are familiar with a plot diagram and how those stories usually, what path those usually follow. So F is our tests, allies, enemies. Of course, we have school. Harry is learning how to become a wizard when he has lived in the Muggle world for all of his life. Quidditch is another test that he has to learn how to play this new game. His allies, of course, are Ron and Hermione, and we could see his enemies being Draco. And there are probably others that we could consider being his enemies as well. And then an ultimate test. So this is not necessarily like the climax of the story, but when a character is actually put on the quest, they've learned information that they need to know about defeating whatever it is, but now they actually have to go on to the quest. So these often happen to be mazes or a cave or even sometimes underwater. And specifically with this one, we have a maze to the stone. Then we kind of come to our climax moment, which is the crisis, and this is the supreme ordeal, and this usually takes the form of a battle. And so, of course, we have the battle with Quirrell and Voldemort. And then the last one in this initiation phase is claiming the reward. So, of course, once Harry, Ron, and Hermione return from their ultimate quest, then they claim the house points for Gryffindor and win. So for this last part, this is the return, and that is when our hero goes back over that threshold into their real life. Okay, so this one is a little bit muddled up as far as the order goes, and that's really because not all Hero's Journey has every specific part. Generally they do. This is a general guide for how adventure stories often work, but sometimes the way that these things appear can be in a different order, or one of them could be missing, whatever. Okay, so for this one, the C, which is the return of the hero, actually happens before our going back over the threshold. So C, of course, is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione come back to Hogwarts and they have the banquet and the celebration. And then we don't have a B. Some stories do when you think the story's almost over, but actually there's one last final challenge that a character has to overcome. And then we have when Harry actually crosses back over the threshold into the Muggle world and he returns to Privet Drive for the summer. So discussion 19 is going to take a very different format. We're going to work in small groups, and what you're going to do is, with the assistance of your group leader who I've already appointed, you are going to work with your group by Monday to identify the adventure story that you will apply the hero's journey to. When you're thinking about this, since this isn't actually going to be a formal thing that you do on the discussion board, you can either have that conversation with your group members on the actual discussion board and make sure then that your group leader emails me by Monday night with your choice, or you could do this all over email. It doesn't really matter to me. The other thing that you need to do by Monday is decide which of the parts of the hero's journey is it that you are going to identify for your group. Again, that can be something that happens over email, or it can be something that you decide within the discussion board. It is totally up to you. So you're really not doing a formal post on Monday. You're just talking with your group, deciding what story you all are going to use to identify the different parts of the hero's journey, and then figuring out which of the letters that you're going to write on. I will give you more specifics in an email that goes directly to your small group. Then on part 2, by Wednesday, you need to identify the assigned parts of the hero's journey and post in the discussion board. Again, this should probably be a totally separate post, so don't reply to, if you conversed with your other members before, don't reply to that. Start a totally different thread that's directly replying to my post, okay? And then within that reply, you need to make sure that you're identifying, again, are you responding to letter A, B, and C, or are you responding to H and I, whatever it is, okay? Then on Thursday, I would recommend that you go back into the discussion board and make sure that your worksheet is all filled out for all parts of the group choice area on the Hero's Journey worksheet that you have.